All right, today we're diving into the biography of a language. And let me tell you, it's a story packed with invasions, class warfare, and just constant reinvention. We're talking about English and its absolutely wild journey from this tiny little Germanic dialect to a global superpower. Let's get into it. So, if you speak English or have ever tried to learn it, you've probably asked yourself, why is this language so weird? You know, why is read spelled the same as red? Why do we have mice but not heis? Well, that weirdness isn't a flaw. It's actually a feature. It's like a fossil record of its dramatic history. And today, we're going to dig in. And here, right here, is clue number one. Get this. The Anglo-Saxon farmer, out in the field, he raised a pig, a cow, or a sheep, all good, solid Germanic words. But when that meat showed up on the dinner table of his French-speaking Norman lord, it suddenly became pork, beef, or mutton, all words straight from French. This is amazing. It shows how a military conquest literally split the language right down the dinner table. It's a perfect example of how language reflects a society's power structure. Now, to really get English, we have to go back. I mean, way, way back. Before England was even a thing, before the Romans, even before the Celts, we need to take a look at its ancient family tree. You see, English is part of this huge, sprawling family of languages spoken all the way from Ireland to India by more than 1 billion people. This family, called Indo-European, started spreading out as early as 7000 BC. So the roots of English? They're not just in England. They stretch across entire continents and thousands of years. Okay, so let's zoom in from that giant family to the direct ancestor of English. We're going to focus on one specific branch, Proto-Germanic. This is the language that gave English its fundamental structure, its chassis, really. So what made Germanic languages like English so unique? Well, it was a pivotal event called Grimm's Law. The best way to think about it is like a permanent fork in the road for language. It was this chain reaction of sound changes that made Proto-Germanic sound totally different from its cousins, like Latin. And that's a big reason why English sounds so different from, say, French or Spanish, even though they all share a distant ancestor. So how did this actually happen? Well, it was surprisingly systematic. Basically, a bunch of hard consonant sounds from the parent language, they just softened up. The P sound shifted to an F, the T sound became they, and the K sound morphed into an H. And you can see the results of this everywhere. Just look at Latin, which didn't go through Grimm's Law. It has the word piscis, but in English, that P became an F, and we got fish. Latin has tres, we have three. Latin has centum, but for us, that cuss sound turned into an H, giving us 100. So the key takeaway here is, this isn't random. It's a system. It's a pattern. Okay, let's jump forward in time to the language of the Anglo-Saxons, what we now call Old English. And I'm telling you, if you were to travel back to the year 900, you would not understand a single word. Seriously, it would sound as foreign to you as German or Dutch.
So what made it so different? Well, for starters, Old English was a grammatical minefield. Nouns had 4 different cases, which means their endings changed depending on how you used them in a sentence. Words had grammatical gender, kind of like in French or German. Pronouns were super complex. You had ich for I and du for you. And maybe my favorite part, there were no silent letters. You would have actually pronounced the K in connect, which of course became our modern night.
So how on earth did we get from that complicated, alien-sounding language to the English we speak today? The answer is pretty simple and pretty brutal: invasion. 2 major conflicts would come along and completely bulldoze Old English grammar, flooding it with thousands of new words. First up were the Vikings. Starting around 787, their raids led to huge settlements. By 878, a massive part of England was actually under Scandinavian control, in a place called the Danelaw. Then, in 1066, a totally different group shows up, the French-speaking Normans. They seized control of the entire country, and just like that, English became the language of a conquered people. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Just look at the kind of words that got borrowed. From the Scandinavian Vikings, who were basically their neighbors, we got these gritty, everyday words: leg, sky, husband, wrong. But from the Norman French, the new rulers, we got the language of power and administration: government, justice, army, royal. English was soaking up words from both the top and the bottom of society at the exact same time. It became a living record of its people's social structure. So out of all this linguistic chaos, a new language was born: Middle English. It was a true hybrid, stripped down, streamlined, and packed with a massive new vocabulary. Let's look at one perfect example of this simplification. In Old English, you had thou for talking to one person and ye for talking to a group. But under French influence in Middle English, you became the formal, polite way to talk to just one person, kind of like vous in French. And eventually, thou just fell out of fashion completely, and the formal you took over for everything. A huge simplification. Now, just when Middle English was starting to settle down, something really, really bizarre happened: the Great Vowel Shift. Around the year 1500, for reasons that linguists are still debating, English speakers all over the country just systematically changed how they pronounced their long vowels. And this is the source of so many of our modern spelling headaches. Let me make this real for you. In Old English and Middle English, the word for that little rodent was moose, and it was pronounced moose. But during the Great Vowel Shift, that long oo sound moved up in the mouth and became the ow sound we have today, mouse. This happened to long vowels all across the language, but the spelling often stayed the same, frozen in time by the brand new technology of printing. And that brings us to the final phase of our story. After centuries of being invaded and reshaped, English became the invader, or at the very least, the great borrower. Through empire, trade, and science, English spread across the entire globe, just picking up words from every single language it touched. I mean, seriously, just look at this list. From Italian, we get words for music and art. From Spanish, words for trade and food. From Dutch, all these nautical terms. From Arabic, words of science and comfort. From Japanese, words for culture and cuisine. English didn't just borrow words, it plundered them, creating the largest vocabulary of any language on Earth. But not everyone was thrilled about this. Believe it or not, as far back as 1561, scholars like Sir John Cheek were sounding the alarm. He argued that all this borrowing would make English bankrupt, that it would become this messy, impure mix of other languages. He wanted a clean and pure English. And that really leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? Was Sir John Cheek right to be worried? Is the weirdness of English, this massive, borrowed vocabulary and all its inconsistent rules, is that a weakness? Or is that very impurity, that willingness to just absorb words from anywhere and everywhere, the real secret to its incredible adaptability and its global success? What do you think?